Hi, I'm Miss Jennifer.
And I'm Mr. Davis.
I'm Mr. Gavin.
I'm Paxton.
It's Mr.
I'm
Cooper.
Cooper.
Gavin.
And we typically teach the 4th and 5th graders at Living Hope. We miss you guys, and we hope to see you guys soon. But today we're going to talk to you about Jesus.
Now, before we get started, raise your hand if you've heard of Jesus. Guys, raise your hand if you've heard of Jesus. All right, good. So you have heard of him. I see you're familiar with him. So as you might know, Jesus lived and traveled in the region we know today as Israel. During his ministry, Jesus performed many miracles. Why did Jesus perform many miracles? What do y'all think? We know? Well, that is exactly what I call our big picture question, and here is the answer. Jesus performed miracles to glorify God, to show he is the Son of God, and to care for people. Keep that in mind as you hear about one of Jesus' amazing miracles today. When Jesus came to earth, people didn't know who he was. The Old Testament prophets had said that the Messiah would come, but people would not recognize him. But Jesus spent 3 years in public ministry. He taught people about God and his kingdom. He also performed miracles. Today's Bible story is called Jesus Calmed a Storm. Now that sounds pretty miraculous.
Jesus spent all day teaching crowds of people near the Sea of Galilee. That evening, Jesus went to cross over to the other side of the sea. So Jesus and his disciples left the crowds. They got into a boat and they began sailing. Some of the people from the crowds followed in their own boats. While Jesus and his disciples traveled, Jesus fell asleep on a cushion at the back of the boat. All of a sudden, a storm came. The wind was strong and the waves crashed into the boat. Water was coming on the boat. The disciples were afraid. Many of the disciples were fishermen. They had survived storms on the sea before, but this storm was different. It was so strong. If water kept coming into the boat would sink. Surely they would all drown. The disciples looked to Jesus for help, but Jesus was still fast asleep at the back of the boat. He didn't even seem to notice the storm. Did Jesus care that they were about to sink into the sea? The disciples woke up Jesus.
Lord, save us!
We're all gonna die!
Jesus opened his eyes, and he saw that his friends were afraid. He got up and spoke to the wind. Then Jesus said to the sea,
Silence, be still.
At the sound of Jesus' voice, the wind stopped blowing and the waves stopped crashing. Everything was calm. The disciples were safe. Jesus looked at his disciples and asked,
Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?
Did the disciples not trust Jesus to take care of them? The disciples were amazed.
Who is this man?
Even the winds and the waves obey him.
Jesus had been teaching all day. When he got into the boat with his disciples, he fell asleep. Have you ever slept through a storm? Maybe you slept through it in the comfort of your own bed. Could you imagine sleeping through a storm while you were outside? The storm was so intense that Jesus' disciples, who were professional fishermen, thought that they were going to die. Where did they turn? Let's look at Mark 4, verse 38. Jesus was in the stern, and he was sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? The disciples assumed that Jesus didn't care about what might happen to them. Jesus got up and rebuked the wind and the waves. Immediately, the storm stopped. Jesus calmed a storm to show the disciples that he is God. They knew that he was a good man and that he was a good teacher. But when Jesus calmed the wind and the waves, he showed his disciples that he is also God. God rules the sea and stills its waves. Psalm 89:9.
Okay, kids, let's go over some questions from today's story and get some feedback from you. What would you have thought if Jesus was sleeping through the storm that day? What would you have thought about that? Perhaps, maybe Jesus was sleeping. Maybe it would make you seem like he didn't care. Even if God remains silent in our difficult situations sometimes, it doesn't mean he doesn't care. He is always near and always at work, often in ways we do not expect. He does everything for his glory and our good. Another question, what can you do when you feel afraid of what is happening around you? We can look to Jesus in faith every day. We can look to him to rescue us from sin, and we can ask for his help to live in a way that honors him and honors his name. Even when we feel afraid or doubt God, we can cry out to him. Jesus cares. He will answer. And like the disciples did, we can worship him. And the third question, the last question, what do you know to be true about God that can help you to have peace in hard situations? Ultimately, we can trust that God is sovereign or in control of all situations. God gives us peace that we can show through the world and that help other people to know that he is mighty. Jesus proved that he can be trusted. His miracles, teaching, death, and resurrection showed that he is who he says he is. Only Jesus can save us when we look to him in faith.
Okay, guys. Well, we're done with that Bible story. And I pray that it is something that you can just take with you and remember right now, especially as so many of you are going back to school. And that might look different than what it looked like last year. And it's really hard right now. We know that, and we miss you guys. And we can't wait to have you in our classrooms here at church again. But just know that God is sovereign. He's in control. And the disciples wouldn't have seen him as God had they not gone through that storm with him. So God can use us to glorify himself in a mighty way. I just pray that you guys have a great start of a year, and we love you and we miss you.
Yeah, miss you guys. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. And thanks for your time and for joining us today.